Hello,
Alrighty.
hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Welcome.
Yay.
Welcome
So we
to We All
have
Have Stuff. What episode are we on?
this is 73. This is kind of crazy.
73. We've made
Yay.
it. We keep on going and we keep having amazing guests. So
This is so great. So today we actually have a wonderful guest from Canada. Woo! It's our first
it's our first
Canadian
Canadian
guest, which
guest.
we love. Yay,
We
how
love
fun.
it.
So this is Marcus. He's also a therapist. So we're very excited to pick his brain about what he does and how things might be a little different up in Canada. So Marcus, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, your population you work with, and what sorts of things you enjoy learning about the most in our field?
Yeah, for sure. Mainly work from like an attachment-based lens, and so that keeps me pretty much focused on like relationships as a whole, whether that's individuals, couples. I also did the Gottman training in infidelity and trauma, and so I didn't realize that was a niche that a lot of therapists don't like to work with until after I got into it, which works out for me. So I also work with infidelity. That's definitely like a good niche and specialty of mine. And I guess with that, like really for me, like all my interest kind of revolves around like what makes relationships, what breaks relationships, like how do we have healthy ones, better ones, more fulfilling ones, like the ones that make us feel alive, and what are the relationships that bring us to our knees, that cripple us, that traumatize us, and how do we recover from that is kind of my domain.
Yes, I love that. So I want to like slide in on this question really quick because I
Sure.
noticed you kind of talked a lot. I don't know the exact verbiage when I read about you about I think you used the word, like, attachment to, like, social media and things going something around that lens. Like, so can you kinda go deeper? I don't know if you said that's what you studied or something like that about
Yeah,
social
I
media world or, like, our phones and addiction to our phones, and how do you see that either play out with clients or especially since you're kinda talking about couples, do you see that playing out a lot in stuff you see?
Yeah, so that was my capstone that I did in graduate school, where I was obviously super interested in relationships. I wanted to understand, how modern relationships are really kind of like forming and being influenced, which obviously includes social media and internet. And so I looked at what does attachment, social media use, social media addiction kind of do to attachment styles. Because it was a capstone, I was kind of just gathering research. I didn't have an experiment. So I can't really draw, decisive conclusions because there wasn't actually any research being done. It was just kind of like my own hypothesis. But that was kind of like my own conclusion that I was drawing in my paper is that we use social media and the internet basically as an attachment need. And obviously, we understand based on attachment research that that's not sufficient. It's not able to meet our attachment needs. And so, if we are going to an attachment figure that can't meet those attachment needs, it's going to lead to attachment insecurities. And so, my kind of a hypothesis is that we're probably going to be seeing growing populations of both, you know, anxious and avoidant patterns kind of. I think that it kind of is playing out. Like there's a lot of discussions in the dating world right now around attachment styles. I think a lot of it's misinformed, but I do think there's a lot more concern around attachment insecurity going on.
It's really interesting, little known fact. So my field has changed tremendously and my population changed tremendously. But in my master's program, my thesis was about social media and relationships and how it changes the
Mhm.
nature of a relationship based on how much you post about your significant other.
Mhm.
And so this is really like harkening back a couple of years now for me. But how do you from your perspective and working with couples and all the training that you've sort of undergone to get to this place, is social media ever going to be a positive thing in a relationship? Can it be healthy and how do we get there? Because it's so negative right now. Oh, your face. Okay, let's hear
It's a
it.
it's such a good question because like I don't like demonizing social media. I think like there's so much rampant information about people hating on social media and like yes, we know like it's made like a slot machine, it's made for addiction, like it's meant to keep people on, all that kind of stuff. But I'm also the advocate of like, hey, it does create relationships, it does create connections, like people who have never had, friends within their certain niche and anime interests are able to actually make community. And that's beautiful. I think when it comes to relationships and romantic relationships, especially if you're talking about like posting, I think when we look at relationships, like there are expectations where, there is like a level of performance to maintain the role of relationship, right? Like being respectful, coordinating schedules, giving your time, all that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing with social media is like you can perform for the platform, you can perform for the appearance of the role compared to actually maintaining the role. Honestly, like, even as I say that, no different than like you can put a lot of effort into getting married at the wedding without actually preparing for your marriage. And I think that can kind of be the mistake that people make. And so I think there definitely is a lot of negative that can happen, right? Where like you're just kind of like keeping up appearances, and we all know people where it's like, oh, you're posting your vacation beach pictures and you're fucking miserable and you hate each other. And also, like, I'm sure you guys know, like, there's therapists on there. Like, the Gottmans are making social media content. Like, there's beautiful things. And I don't know, for me, I followed gym pages and fitness pages. And I'm like, I love seeing happy couples working out. Like, that's hot. That's sexy. That's inspiring. So, and the idea of like, there's also love that can exist in maybe ways that you don't know about because you're getting exposed to new content, new domains, new areas, new kind of people. And so I think if you're performing for the algorithms instead of trying to actually meet your partner, yeah, it's going to be detrimental. But I think there's a lot of good that can come from social media too, if you're actually open to inspiration and education.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're absolutely right because the purpose of social media and all of this connection was just that, right? Like that's the reason that we had it. But now I feel like, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this too. I feel like social media in a relationship is now like a marker of value
Yeah.
in a relationship, whether that's a friendship or an intimate relationship. And that's a very inorganic way to measure someone's desire for you and want for success and how much they love and care for you,
Yeah.
right? So when that becomes an issue in a friendship or in a relationship, is it better to move away from it or to set limits on it in a healthy way? Where is it a boundary? Where is it an expectation? When is it a preference? And how do you work with that?
Yeah, I think I hear that, and there's like the underlying question of like, is there trust or is there shame present in the relationship, right? Where it's like, okay, very cliche. Oh, the guy doesn't post pictures of him and his girlfriend, and the girlfriend gets sad and upset because it's like, oh, you're hiding me, you're ashamed of me, like you're trying to have side pieces, whatever. And it's like, he also hasn't posted a picture of himself in 5 years. So why are you reading that negatively as like a detriment to you when that's just who he is? At the same time, of course, we all do know, and obviously, like, there's so much garbage on social media that people do that, where it's like, I'm not going to post you so I can keep my side pieces and okay. And I think there's so much nuance there, like navigating shame, navigating like again roles, and I guess even who you're just like how you're displaying your relationship to the world. Like, is that same couple who's not posting on social media, are they holding hands in public or are they not having PDA? Because again, same thing of we want to keep up appearances or I want to keep my options open, so I'm keeping my distance, that kind of stuff. I don't like I think it's more of like on the couple, right? Like there's plenty of couples in that same way of like who don't have PDA, who are very confident and very secure in each other, who have the agreement, who understand who they are to each other, and nothing else matters. And again, there's other couples where they post a lot and they're keeping up the appearances. And again, like they're miserable. Like they're making out on the beach one day and they're breaking up the next. Like it doesn't mean anything. And so I think it's really dependent on the couple. But I also do think what you're highlighting is important, that your relationship doesn't just happen with you and your partner, it happens in the community, and being able to understand who are you as a couple in community and how do you want to express that? How do you want to display that? How are you living that out and making sure you agree on that? That's pretty important.
Yeah, what I think is interesting when I hear you talk is like I even felt it when you were describing it. I'm like, there's so many layers to like social media, right? Like when you were like, what's coming up for you? This person posts you or they don't post you. And like you're thinking it's you, I'm hiding you. But like my mind also went to like, what's that person's history? What have they been through? Like, is there's a reason for that actually in history, or is it just in your mind in comparison to other couples? Like
Right.
it gets so complex. And I think that's why it's such an issue that we all see as therapists too, because it's not just one simple thing at this point. We
Mhm.
have so many things people come in and the world is social media. Now we have our real life, but the reality is the world is virtual now. So there is a component of figuring out what deeper stuff that is and being able to communicate that with your partner.
Mhm.
I am curious about because it did make me think you mentioned working with infidelity, right? Like and the Gottmans do talk about this a lot. And so does Esther Perel talks about that a lot
Mhm.
too, of, you know, working with infidelity and how do you work around that with social media, right? Because social media is a platform where you are reachable to everybody. Infidelity back in the day was like,
Mhm.
I have to worry about you doing something in person,
Right.
right? Like, you're gonna cheat on me if you're out,
Mhm.
right? And now we have like, I log on my computer, I'm in a virtual world. I get on my phone, I'm
Mhm.
in a virtual. I have access to the whole world in relationships
Mhm.
all day, every day. So like, what do you think about, like, infidelity and, like I mean, I guess my question would more so be if a couple's, like, they had an infidelity issue
Hmm.
and they're coming to you and it's like, how do we navigate the virtual world in that aspect
Yeah.
when the reality of it is it actually happened in this relationship?
Right. Which I love Esther Perel's take, and I definitely appreciate like her distant mentorship through a lot of my practice in that way too. Because I think if you're going to work with infidelity, and if you're going to actually kind of like recover from infidelity, part of beginning that work with couples is how are you defining fidelity and how are you defining faithfulness? And do you even agree on that? Because I think a number of times couples don't, which even when we talk about social media, that's so gray where it's like there was an emotional affair, you were texting somebody else, and it's like, is that cheating? Like there's no sexual contact, there's no physical contact, you never met up, you never went on a date. Is that cheating? And again, like, is it cheating to look at pornography? Is it cheating to buy pornography? Is it cheating to have like specific made pornography? Is it like at what point does it become infidelity in a transaction compared to when like actual cheating? Like it's I think it's very subjective based on the relationship because obviously like some couples can watch porn together and that's actually like they love it and they can get off on it literally and it helps the relationship compared to other couples are much more conservative. And it's like simply looking at pornography of any kind is cheating. And so with social media, there's a huge like dialogue and discussion of like at what point is it cheating? Does it depend on like the kind of conversation being had? Does it depend on the target? Like, is it different talking to a porn star versus talking to an ex? Like, how do we define that? And again, like so many times where it's like, there's times where it's like one partner's like, oh, they cheated. Another person's like, I don't think I cheated. And it's like, cool. Well, we have something to kind of work through then. And it, obviously within couples therapy, it's less about moral judgment and right and wrong and actually being able to like talk about what matters and how like the impact and the consequences. But that's getting into the bit of like the weeds of like how that process usually starts.
Now, I always like to highlight what you're saying, which is have the values conversation with your partner, right? Do we align on things like this that are going to possibly be problematic if we disagree?
Mhm.
So, I mean, with that said, like we know what the research says, we know that for couples, we try to power through every problem, right? Do you think that infidelity is something that a partnership can survive long term typically? And do you think that if there is a misalignment of those definitions and values, that it's possible to bring them to agreement?
I think it definitely can recover, but not to like minimize the severity of infidelity, but I almost relate it to any sort of offense of do you care more about how it's impacting your partner and having that empathetic kind of like remorse for the pain that you caused intentionally or unintentionally? Or do you care more about being right and being vindicated within your own moral sense of self? Because you can be right morally and it can break up the relationship compared to I don't even think what I did was wrong, but I care more about how it impacted my partner than about my own justification. So I'm happy to admit fault. I'm happy to take responsibility because it's not about my own moral failing. I'm not on trial here to defend myself. I actually just want to make sure my partner's okay. And if that is the response, I think almost any relationship can recover if there's the capacity to actually process through that. It's a very arduous and like pretty heavy process, but that's like the beginning kind of like checkpoints I look for of like, is this even salvageable at the beginning stage?
Yeah, Gabby, I like that question in general because I think it came up on another episode of it's with something totally different. But my mind went to I think there's like a difference between a mistake versus a pattern,
Hmm.
and I think and I'm curious to hear from you, Marcus, of like, but what if that's a pattern, right? Like, I'm going to go to therapy, we're going to work on it. And then whoopsie, I did it again. Right. And then it's like, well, we can go back to therapy and figure it out. And now it's like, okay, but like you said sorry, we kind of moved through it, and now boom, I'm re-traumatized. And you see couples going through that where it's like, hey, he didn't just do this once or she didn't just do this once. It was like, hey, this is my boundary and now you chose to cross it. So you can't there's not a sorry without change,
For sure.
right? So what's your take on that?
For sure. I would definitely agree. Like, I think if somebody's cheated multiple times and then they're kind of going through the therapy process or the healing process, whatever you want to call it, to make amends and to fix the relationship, that is substantially different than I cheated once. I've gotten the help, I've figured it out, and then cheated again because that break in trust definitely compounds in the same way of like, you know, again, any offense where you kind of like let it go for a while, and then you make amends for it. You're like you said, change looks like change behavior. It looks like I care about my partner. I understand them enough to create the change that they need to, that what they're looking for. So then when it's repeated, it's like, that's not even just like compound offense and compound pain. That's like exponentially worse. And I would say it becomes much, much more difficult to repair from that. I don't say it's impossible, but like it would get like, again, just exponentially harder because once you've repaired that trust, once you've rebuilt and kind of identified, this is why I did it, this is the mistake I made, this is quote unquote what's wrong with me, this is what led me into this situation, I own that, I take responsibility for that, and then you do it again, it becomes the big question of like, why should they believe you? Why should they believe that you're going to change this time when you've already displayed that you made that commitment, but you didn't follow through? So like, and it's not like a aggressive question. It's not like a antagonistic question. It's just like a general, like very like thought provoking, like truly, why should they believe you? And that makes it much, much harder because the person who's in pain, it's like they have a whole nervous system telling them, don't believe you. You're putting yourself in harm's way, which does kind of really thwart the repair process when it's done multiple times.
Yeah, and I guess my thoughts on that when you're talking about trust, like that's so foundational in a relationship. You can't repair emotional bonds, you can't repair like physical closeness if you don't have basic trust.
Mhm.
And so I guess the burden does fall on the person who stepped away or was unfaithful to recognize that they're not saying sorry and then coming back with 100% full trust from their partner, right? They're
Mhm.
now coming with maybe 75% as a
Mhm.
starting point, and there's rebuilding before you can afford another mistake.
Mhm.
You know, regardless of what that is, whether it's a different boundary that's being tested, you don't
Mhm.
get the same amount of forgiveness from your partner when you've already misstepped and you
Right.
haven't done the repair. So I think very often that's where we fall into that slippery slope, right? Where now we're like, oh, well, I said sorry, we went to therapy, or I deleted that person,
Mhm.
and now we're all good. It's
Mhm.
not that way. You
No.
know, you have to recognize that you're really sort of begging for the trust to come back, and you need to show that you're worthy of that.
Mhm.
So, with that said, kind of looping it back into the social media stuff we were talking about, because it is such an issue with infidelity and cheating and what that means and what it looks like, and access to people. I feel like having access to people who are problematic in a relationship can go one of two ways. You can say, I don't care. I trust my partner. It's cool. They can follow who they want. They can do what they want.
Mhm.
In your experience, is there ever a time where it makes sense to say, you can't follow that person or else I won't be your partner? If is that a boundary that is reasonable, or is that only when the trust is already broken and there have been issues? Because this is hard. I
Mhm.
trust my partner, like I want, he's going to do what he wants to do anyway, right?
Mhm.
Is that worth it for me to police?
Right.
That I get that question a lot, and I actually have one client that I'm, like, working through this with her, so this would be really helpful to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. I think, I guess I'll add a quick caveat and I'll say that when you're doing like, in my perspective, in my experience, when you're doing infidelity repair, because you said like trust doesn't go back to 100%, it goes back to a fraction of it. And then you have to rebuild from there. And so for me, when we look at like surveillance behaviors, which is like checking text, checking location, checking DMs, like let me go through your phone, I tell couples is like that rebuilds security, that doesn't rebuild trust. And so while that might be necessary in the infidelity repair process, we can't stay there. And if we can't stay there too long because we're not actually healing the relationship then. And so I guess in that question of like that dichotomy between do whatever you want, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen versus like having those quote unquote boundaries, I would definitely, I wouldn't say it's black and white. I mean, classic therapist, like it depends, right? Like it's more so of like, where's it coming from? Like, you're saying you can't follow them because you don't trust them to manage their own sex drive, because you don't trust them to manage their sexuality and their pornography use, because you don't feel secure in the relationship, because you don't feel like comparatively beautiful, like relative to the person that they're liking pictures of. I would say like there's a big nuance there because it's like, could it be like innocent of like, oh yeah, this person's attractive, whether it's a fitness page or a bikini pic or, a gym bro, whatever. It's like, cool, like people are attractive. We have a nervous system, we have a brain that wants to reproduce, and our eyes obviously all gravitate towards that. Like that's natural, that's normal, that doesn't go away. Like that's human. And I think in insecure relationships or the insecurity that we have, we can be threatened by natural, normal, human responses. But again, that's also different than I haven't told my partner that they're beautiful or attractive in 3 months, but I just liked 20 bikini pictures on Instagram that literally everyone can see because likes are public. And that dichotomy, right? Of like, it's almost like there's something being said without it being said. And that becomes the stomping ground for like, we need to have this conversation. What is this? What does this mean? And I think even with that, like, don't bullshit. Like, don't say like, no, I find you attractive. It's like, cool, you haven't said it. So how am I going to know? Like, you can't kind of just like BS your way through it and be like, oh, no, it's fine. It's like, okay, no, like, how do they know it's fine? If there is some missing behavior here, like, we need to actually like discuss needs, discuss like what's going on and figure out like what works for both of us that makes us both make sure that we don't feel threatened or commitment's not going anywhere or, like nobody's straying, all that kind of stuff. Like, I think there's just a lot of negotiation and dialogue that needs to happen.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it is case by case, right? But I like that you pointed out there's a difference between getting security and getting trust because I think we conflate the two very often. Like, yeah, I feel safe in my relationship, but then by the same token, you're questioning behaviors and you're
Right.
questioning motivations too, right? So, thank you for like making that distinction here. I think even we tend to not gloss over the differences there very often. So, my other thought is on the flip side of that, let's say that you have someone who can't reconcile with their partner after they've been wronged and they feel like I'm over this, I can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
So they unfollow them, but they leave that partner with access to their stuff, right? Like I want him to see how well I'm doing. How right? It happens so often, like,
You see that all the time. You see,
all
like
the time. I know.
like
Yeah,
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 I think
and
that's a huge
from
topic that, like,
yes.
needs addressed too,
Yeah.
because at least from, like, a processing point for me and Marcus, I wanna hear from you. It's like, and Marcus, I think you're, like, a lot younger than us, so it's like, it might be different. I think it's different generational, but, like, I know when we were younger, like, social media was just becoming a thing when I was younger,
Yeah.
right? So like, I'm 35, and I just remember, like, there's, like, a country even song about it of, like, when you broke up when you were younger, like, you didn't see that person. You're
Yeah.
like, "We're just broken up,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna move forward," and, like, there's something about that that's healthy, though, like,
Yeah.
we break up,
Yes.
and I move on with my life, and what social media does with that grieving process of,
Yes.
like, you're living in it now, like,
Hmm.
I want you to see me and be sad and miss me, and also I
Right.
might spy on you or have my friends spy on you, and
100%.
then you get stuck in this, like, I'm not really grieving you, I'm just, like, in this emotional thing with you still, and then people I think there's a younger generation that's like, "Why is it so much harder to move forward?"
Yeah.
But what do you think about that?
First thing, I'm 33, by the way. Like, we're basically the same age.
Oh,
Okay, we are, like, the same generation. I think I guess I
good.
just assumed that because you're, like, a younger therapist, so I was like, "Oh, maybe he's
Oh,
just a lot younger than us."
I'll take it. I'll take
Yay.
the young
We'll all
looks.
take it. We like a little young
My
vibes, like
skincare is working great, so I'll take that.
yeah.
Play. We love it.
But yeah, I do think you're right. Like, I think social media has changed that grieving process, and I think when our social media and virtual presence doesn't match our physical and emotional presence, like, yeah, we're gonna have problems. And people are like, yeah, why aren't I getting over them? It's like, you're checking their social media like every other day. Like, you're reopening that wound because you're like, the grieving process is so uncomfortable. So you basically try to ease that pain by going through their profile and like, whatever. And it's like, you're not grieving. It's painful and you're feeling the pain, but you're not grieving. So of course you're not over it. Like, you keep reopening that, like, difficulty of the relationship breakup. And so I would say, like, if someone's like not changing their, I guess, like, social media virtual presence in relationships, like, I would ask, like, would you expect to get over that person if you've seen them every day at work, or at least at the same speed? Probably not. Like, no, like, that'd be really hard. But yet, you keep seeing them, and you open their Facebook or you open their Instagram or their TikTok at 11 p.m. every night. Like, yeah, it's gonna be really hard compared to, hey, like, you have to let your body actually go through like that detox process. Like, we know, romance is a lot of times like addictive in nature with endorphins and oxytocin and all that shit. And so it's like, yeah, when you break up, your body's gonna go through that withdrawal. You're not getting the hugs, you're not having sex. So your body's gonna have that withdrawal process. The whole like, to get through that, you don't do the harm reduction approach of like going to their social media and getting a little hit to like keep you going. It's like, no, you need to go cold turkey. You need to ride it out and like actually break that addiction to actually go through that grieving process. But yeah, like, I think it was easier for us because we had an experience without the internet where we understood how to navigate and we didn't have these parasocial relationships. Whereas now we are kind of constantly monitoring these people. And it's like, yeah, like, I mean, for lack of a better word, just don't do that. That's not a good idea.
Right. And with like, I'm curious about like back to Gabby's question because Gabby, I think that's an interesting question because yours was different, I guess. So sorry I like chimed in, but I'm thinking of yours and I'm like, yeah, so somebody comes in and you're going through a breakup and you're okay blocking your ex because you don't want them to see your stuff, right? You're
Mhm.
like, I don't, or you don't want to see their stuff, right, Gabby? You're like, I don't need to see them, but I want them to see what I'm doing.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a huge point of like, if you have something to prove to somebody, you realize that they have power over you. Like, that's kind of how that works. We don't have something to prove to people who don't matter to us. So as long as you have something to prove to them, you are giving them power and power over you, by the way, because I don't have anything to prove to people I think that are less than me, which I mean, not that I think people are less than me. I only need to prove myself to somebody that I'm trying to manage impressions with, to somebody who I'm deeming important, to somebody who I'm deeming significant. So if I'm like, oh, I have something to prove, like I'm going to show you, and that's where I like kind of like clock it of like if you're gonna like, oh, I'm gonna get in such good shape, I'm gonna make more money, I'm gonna like stunt on them, and I'm gonna freaking, have a new baddie, new partner, whatever. And it's like, okay, you're not even doing that for you. Like that's gonna feel empty and hollow. And that's like gonna really suck because all of your success, even if you get it, isn't gonna be enjoyable. And then you're really gonna struggle because then like you realize you didn't even do it for you. You did it to try to ease this pain that's still there when you get there.
Mhm.
That's gonna be really fucking shitty to work through. Again, please don't do that. That's gonna suck.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think too, as you said that, I was like, "Ew, how awful would that be if all the things you did for yourself are related to this person who hurt you?"
Mhm.
Like, I'm hot because I wanted to hurt him.
Right.
I got this new partner because I wanted to make him jealous.
Right.
Ew.
Right.
That
Right.
takes the joy out of everything,
Yes.
really. So,
Mhm.
my last question for you, you said something really powerful, which was you need to sort of adjust your social media presence when you're in a relationship. And
Mhm.
to me, when I hear that, I think of, okay, that makes you means you need to make yourself publicly less accessible to people who might seek you out for the purposes of attention or a relationship or something like that, right? You want to make it clear like my life has changed. That's the way I hear that. What is a healthy way to do that such that you can create that boundary of I'm with someone and I respect my relationship, but I
Mhm.
also don't have to go on like a cleanse. I need to
Yeah.
create trust, and what does that look like to a healthy relationship?
Sorry, just to clarify, I think when I made that point, it was delineating like if you're going through a breakup to readjust your profiles, your
Okay,
algorithms,
yeah,
to again
sure.
kind of like remanage your relationship with that person so that way you can
Yes.
like live independently, emotionally, physically, and virtually. And I
Mhm.
think in that way, in like you could kind of like put that in like once you're in a relationship, is there a
Yeah,
change that's happening? It's like, yeah, I'm
that's it,
not
yeah.
I'm not DMing, you know, people that could be suitors at
Sure.
2 a.m. That's probably not an
Mhm.
appropriate time to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But it's not to say like, can I not post
Mhm.
like
Right.
a beach pic? It's like, no, of course you can. In the same way that you might wear like a skimpy outfit out in public because you like feeling hot for you. That
Sure.
there's no hard and fast rules, but I think there is like the realization and reflection of like, why are you doing it? Why are you wearing it? And
Right.
of course that gets into the whole argument of like, well, I did it for myself. I
Yeah,
did it. I wanted to feel hot. And it's like, did you? Or did you do it for the compliments? Because there's nothing wrong
for
with either.
sure.
But being aware of like, if you're looking for validation and compliments from strangers, from third parties, that's not your partner. It's like, okay, your partner might have feelings about that. But
Sure.
again, that's very subjective based on the relationship where
Yeah.
some people are more protective, more conservative. They feel that threat more urgently.
Mhm.
Whereas other people, it's like, if other people find my partner hot, that's a turn on. I love it because I know that I'm
Yeah.
taking it home and I'm okay with that. Like, get all the compliments because
Yeah.
I know that you can work a room and I'll literally just come grab you and like kiss you right in the mouth and I'll show everyone that you're mine. Like,
Sure.
that becomes like
That's
you are
different.
for other
Yeah.
people. Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
very based on, again, like personal boundaries, personal limitations, personal insecurities. That's really relationship dependent.
Right. So I think what, like, I know we're out of time, so we're going to try to wrap it up. But like, when I heard you both even talking right now, I think a huge thing in relationships is seeing what each other find respectful and
Mhm.
disrespectful.
Yeah.
I think that's a great word because when I'm hearing you both talk, like some couples are like, I don't, neither of us find that disrespectful. It works for us. And other couples are like, no, like actually,
Mhm.
you doing X, like, I feel disrespected. I feel like you're betraying me, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's just like a language around like what things each partner feels respected and disrespected by, and bringing that awareness into the relationship. So,
Yeah. I think if I can make like one quick point, I think the reason that a lot of this like advice on social media when it comes to relationships is because people don't actually understand their own values, their own insecurities, their own emotions.
mhm,
And so they're
yeah,
looking to the internet and social media for what are the signs of a healthy and unhealthy relationship? What are the ways to tell if somebody's a good partner or not? And it's like some generic advice might be helpful, again, like if it's heavily research based, like Gottman's and stuff. However, it's like you need to know what you need in a relationship because what you needed is going to be much different than your friend, which is why you don't want the same people. But if you don't know that, then you're going to be looking to like these arbitrary, almost meaningless rules of like, well, he wanted to go 50-50, or he didn't dress up nice, or, he didn't do the sidewalk rule. And that's my cutoff. And it's like, sure, but is that really the definitive factor that is important to you? You should know those factors for yourself instead of taking the generic advice. What are your cutoffs? What are your filters? Because again, they're going to vary from relationship to relationship.
yeah, I agree. I like that a lot. So, to help us end this, usually at the end of our episodes, we like to give like tools, tips, tricks for our listeners. So,
Mm,
if you could, anybody listening to this episode, a lot of it was like gauge with social media and relationships,
mm.
infidelity, all of that. What would you, if somebody was really into this episode, like, oh, yeah, I get them, what is something you would want to put in their pocket for them to either work on, take with them, or some kind of tool?
I think something like really pragmatic, especially based on like that last comment, is think about a friend that you really like, that you're really similar to, and that you really fuck with and vibe. Talk to them and figure out what their non-negotiables are for a relationship, and then sit down and write what your own are that are specifically different. Because again, you're not going to want the same people most likely, even if you are similar. And so being able to really refine and figure out what are my needs, what how do I manage my own sense of autonomy? How do I manage my own sense of time and schedule? Am I like a Velcro partner where I want to be glued at the hip? Do I want more independence? Like being able to really define those for yourself and understanding what truly separates you from everybody else is really helpful because that helps both you look for the right partner, but also sets you apart to understand I'm not like everyone else. I am different. This is how I'm different. And sending those signals can attract the partner that you're actually looking for compared to, oh, he's a nice guy and checks every box. It's just not there. Well, yeah, it's not there because it doesn't meet your needs.
Yes, I
Wow, I
love
love
that.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that, especially for younger people who may not really know how to do that introspection and check in with
Mhm.
themselves about their values and things that are really important to them. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I love that tool. Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us. We had so much fun with you, and you gave us such good insight,
Yeah,
and I
this
think
was
Yeah,
like
it's
thanks
a
such
for having me.
awesome
topic.
Appreciate you
perspective.
guys
Yeah,
having
this
me
is
on.
a topic that I know a lot of people like. Coupleship is like the biggest things, right? People come in
Mhm.
and usually talk about work and their relationship.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it's like what your topic is such an important thing. So I'm so happy that you niched in it because it's necessary. So thank you for all of that.
Yeah, of
Yay.
course. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate you letting
Yeah,
me on.
thank you so
All
much.
right.
So until next time, we will catch up with you guys, but we've had so many wonderful guests and we definitely appreciate your time. So until next time.
Until next time.